Hi everybody, welcome to GayV Club. My name is Merryana Salem. I am here with my co-host, Duriadan Huck. And welcome to GayV Club.
Where we have a look at LGBT texts that we like, that we don't like, and how we relate to them as gay people of colour.
Hi everyone, it's been a while.
It's been a very long time.
We are recording this in January of 2024.
Yep.
As is customary here at GayV Club.
In the new year.
We are doing our little year in review of the things we watched, which is by no means a comprehensive list of all the gay things that came out in 2023. We're very lucky to live in a time that the list gets longer every year.
Yeah.
But it's by no means a comprehensive list. It's just the stuff we watched and we enjoyed and other stuff that we didn't enjoy but watched. We're sharing that with you.
Yeah.
Whatever we do miss, please feel free to let us know. Our socials are at GayV_club on Twitter and Instagram.
And Threads, technically. Obviously, last year we weren't as active as we were hoping we'd be. We were going through it. We were slightly more active on our Patreon. So if you're interested in going to support us on there, listen to our bonus episodes. That's patreon.com/GayVclub.
We have bonus episodes about Our Flag Means Death, Fall of the House of Usher.
We do a lot more like off-the-cuff episodes of things we just watched on that. So we've got, I think the last one that we did was for Fall of the House of Usher, and then Good Omens, and then our original Succession episode. There's a lot to listen to on there now.
If you miss us dearly, miss us terribly if you like, you can head on over to patreon.com/GayVclub and chuck us a little wee bit of money that we do use to go to film festivals so we can watch stuff and tell you guys about it.
Yeah.
We put all our money back into supporting LGBT storytelling and media, and also, you know, a little bit to support ourselves because we
are LGBT storytellers who make media.
Today we are doing part 1 of our 2023 in review.
We've decided to split our wrap up into TV and film, so this is going to be our television episode, and our film episode shall come at a later date. Film distribution in Australia isn't excellent. There are quite a few LGBT films from last year that we really want to talk about as soon as possible, but we're not able to see them until Mardi Gras Film Festival in February, so that's probably when our film episode will be out. And yes, we do use our Patreon proceedings to get tickets to festivals like the Mardi Gras Film Festival so that we can support queer cinema.
Our criteria for LGBT TV is TV series and series that have significant gay elements and characters, and occasionally it can also be just a show that we really, really like. Occasionally.
It's gay because we said so.
The only definite criteria, apart from there really needs to be some kind of significant gay element to the show.
Or trans element,
sorry. Is that it has to come out in 2023. So we do include like shows that are ongoing or finished. Thank you to everyone, by the way, who answered our survey of things that they watched.
That was really helpful. Thank you. So first off, we have Dead Ringers, which is a mini-series starring Rachel Weisz and Rachel Weisz. And it's a remake of David Cronenberg's 1988 film of the same name about two twin gynecologists who have a really messed up relationship with each other. This miniseries adaptation, it was adapted by Alice Birch, and obviously it's gender swapped. So in the original, Jeremy Irons played the twins Beverly and Elliot Mantle, and in this one it's Rachel Weisz and Rachel Weisz. The series is about like these two twin gynecologists who are trying to change the way that women birth, who are trying to, set up a birthing center, kind of a high-end birthing center for women to deliver babies, basically.
Part of their mantra is that
they want to make things better.
One of the things that they repeat quite a few times in the show, which I do think is like a very good way to put it, is that when people give birth, they're typically sent to hospital, and they sort of constantly ask the question, like, why? Because that treats pregnancy like a sickness. Their sort of MO is that they don't want people to feel like that when they're giving birth.
Yeah.
They want people to feel like they are safe and that they're being appreciated for what pregnancy and birthing actually is.
Which makes them sound like really lovely people, but
they're not.
They're really not. I love me some sibling media. Yeah, Dead Ringers is really great in that it kind of shows like this really twisted dynamic between these two siblings, especially with them being twins. It's kind of evil. They're so evil. So one twin is obviously kind of more dominant and more confident than the other. That's Elliot. And Beverly's the one that's a bit more reserved and nervous. And Beverly, she's very gay, and she falls in love with one of her patients, but she's too scared to talk to her. So in the first episode, Elliot goes and talks to the patient, pretending to be Beverly, to get them together.
Yeah, she literally uses the phrase, "Do you want me to go and catch her for you?"
Yeah.
It's implied that she's done this before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because Beverly is just not very confident.
Mm-hmm.
It is also implied that they swap quite regularly.
Yeah.
When one of them doesn't want to deal with something, the other will go and be in their place.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really fun, like, opening sequence for the show.
Of them, like, changing shoes and their hairdo
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
I highly recommend it. I mean, it's messed up, of course, but it's fun to watch. It says a lot of really great things about health and big pharma and the medical industrial complex and just
discrimination against people who have babies.
As I mentioned, it was based on a Cronenberg film, who's kind of known as like the king of body horror. In this case, I think Dead Ringers is one of my favorite Cronenberg films in that the gore that you see, you don't actually see it because the implication of the gore is so much scarier. And I found it interesting how Dead Ringers, the 2023 series, like this one is like very, very visceral. It's like very visceral gore. I think it's interesting to kind of compare that. It's a kind of a story about like the trauma of birth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like as a man making a movie, Cronenberg, I don't know, I wouldn't call Cronenberg exploitative for that because the way that he didn't do it is very interesting. But I think it's interesting the way that this story about two messed up twin gynecologists who seduce women and violate their privacy, and Alice Birch managed to transform it into a proper narrative and kind of reclaim that and to make it into like a very earnest critique of the health industry and big pharma instead of just being about messed up brothers that hate women.
Instead we had two Rachels.
Yeah, instead we had two Rachels taking advantage of women.
That is a diversity win.
Diversity win. If you can handle the gore, I would highly recommend because
I think by having two women doing this, I mean, I haven't seen the original film, but I feel the women in the story, Beverly and Elliot, in the remake, they're still like very exploitative. And so I feel like Alice Birch, she's sort of saying that those exploitative elements, they're not just like inherent to misogyny, which they absolutely are, but they're also an inherent part of like capitalism and medical exploitation in general. Anyone is capable of enacting those things, and especially because the field of medicine is built on exploitation. And something I really liked in this show, because when I was watching, I sort of kept waiting for them to acknowledge the fact that the field of gynecology, particularly in the United States where the show is set, that field is built on the experimentation on black and brown bodies, like of Latina women and also women who were slaves. And in episode 5 of this show, they acknowledge this. It's one of the best episodes of TV I think I've ever seen. It's done so well. I just recommend people watch this show just for that episode alone. I will just add on to the fact that I really liked how unabashedly messed up this show is and transgressive. It wasn't always necessarily my cup of tea, but I really did enjoy kind of how the show like pushed against a lot of things that I think a lot of shows, even shows that are trying to kind of deal with these issues, like, are too scared to sort of say. And I also appreciated that there were two Rachel voices. You know, had a dream like that once, and now I don't have to dream. Now it's real. Yeah. Now there's a whole show that I could watch. Wonderful.
It was a good show, and it came out so early. In 2023, I was like, I'm not going to watch any new TV shows this year. As in, like, I wouldn't start anything new that came out. I would watch new seasons of shows that I would already watching, but I wouldn't start anything new. Before it was going to be like completely like, nah, I'm not going to watch anything at all. But then I saw a big billboard with two Rachels on it. What was I supposed to do? So I gave myself a pass for miniseries. It was definitely worth it. Next up, we have...
Okay. We have The Last of Us. I know a lot of people have requested a bonus episode on The Last of Us, and I promise I will do that.
People have been asking for Last of Us episodes like since the second game came out.
I promise we will do that at an opportune time. I don't think now is a good time to do it, but first of all, on this podcast, we say fuck Neil Druckmann. Second of all, every single gay plotline in that show is very thinly veiled pinkwashing Zionist propaganda, and I don't like it. I know everyone thought that episode with Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett was like the best episode of TV of the year. I don't see anything good about a guy hoarding resources and killing anyone who asks for help. That is just gross, especially when you consider the fact that Neil Druckmann is a huge Zionist who has talked about how he wants Palestinians to be brutally murdered. So I don't like that. I don't like the undertone of that episode. I really, really don't like it, especially when you consider that Israelis are really good at being like, but we're gay though. Please forgive us. And I don't care. I mean, a lot of people wanted to give Neil Druckmann and co props for expanding on this, as in the first game, these characters exist-ish, but the fact that they're gay is kind of extremely subtextual and it's only really mentioned in a very homophobic way. Again, I don't care because he's a Zionist. I don't care. And if you think I'm not going to come for Ellie and her girlfriend, you're wrong. Because I also hate this plotline. I didn't like it in the game, and I don't like it here either. Ellie's girlfriend is literally villainized for joining the Fireflies, which is a resistance group that want to fight against the military's power in this world. And it's like, why would Neil Druckmann think that any resistance group fighting the will of the military is bad? Why would he do that? The Last of Us series, TV adaptation by HBO, not only does it have all the same Zionist undertones and problems of the game, but Neil Druckmann was like, I'm going to add more, which is, I don't like that. One thing I did like, I guess, for the sake of having something relatively positive, Anna Torv, I love you.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
You know, I played the Last of Us game, and that was before I knew about Neil Druckmann and about his politics. I found that out, I think, after I played the second game, when I was like, wow, this is really bad. Why was it so bad? And then I came across that article that sort of by an Israeli-American gamer who was like, yeah, this is bad because he's a Zionist. And I was like, oh, thank you. I'm not excited that there's going to be a second season. The only thing that is going to make me laugh is that the amount of people that have tuned in to watch this show for Pedro Pascal as Joel, you guys are not going to have a good time watching season 2 more than anybody else. You are not going to have a good time. But I also don't really feel sorry for you, because I don't think Pedro Pascal should have been cast. But anyway.
Well done.
Thanks.
I just want to ask, I just really want to know, like, is this what they killed Westworld for? Like, this is what HBO killed Westworld for, and I don't think it's worth it. Also, Today, as on the day that we recorded, we just found out that Caitlin Dever's who is very skinny,
who is a tiny
Caitlin Dever got
woman.
Cast as Abby for season 2, which I just think is the funniest thing ever because she is so skinny. It would be funny if it wasn't so awful that Hollywood was like just so fucking terrified of buff women. Like at the very least, they could have got Katie M. O'Brien. Are they trying to like quell the misogyny, the misogynistic backlash? I just think y'all are fucking cowards. The most buff you can handle a woman is Florence Pugh. You couldn't even get up to her.
I know. I remember when the second game, when I played it, and I went online, because I gave up. I gave up like 3/4 of the way through this game. I really didn't like it. And I just watched, like on YouTube, like the end, because I was like, I don't know, I don't care what's going to happen, just show me. I remember like seeing all the comments, and I was really upset by the amount of comments that were not only being misogynistic to Abby, but also trans misogynistic, like people being like heaps transphobic to this character who wasn't a trans character simply because she is a muscular woman, which is crazy because I personally think it makes sense for someone to be that buff living in this world because you're constantly fighting off shit all the time. Like, why wouldn't you be buff? I remember seeing that and being like, damn, what's people's problem? It actually makes more sense to me that someone is this buff than not. I remember seeing a while ago, like it was leaked, Caitlin Dever was in talks, quote unquote, to play Abby, and I remember thinking, surely not. So I'm really upset to find that it is correct. I agree with you, Dad. I do think Katie M. O'Brien, who is in the new upcoming film with Kristen Stewart playing
in Love Lies Bleeding.
in Love Lies Bleeding playing her buff GF. Like, literally, when I saw that trailer, I was like, now that's what Abby should look like. You know,
if this was a good show that should even exist.
Which, to be clear, it is not. There's just so much to unpack there, and I just don't have the energy. So let's move on.
Okay, all right.
Let's move on.
So,
you can do it. You can do it, babe.
Next
Go
up,
on.
we have Shadow and Bone season 2. Rest in fucking pieces. I don't want to talk about it. I won't really, but there are gay people in I don't want to talk about the show as a whole, like we'll be here all day. There are gay characters in this universe, in the Grisha-verse.
Were any in season 2 though? I don't remember anything gay happening in season 2.
What do you mean? Jesper and Wyland got to be together, and at the very least, which, you know, isn't much of a consolation to me as someone that doesn't like Wesper, at least we got some nice Jesper and Wyland stuff, which I actually do think the way that they were set up in the show as like having already met before and already being a thing pre-Ice Court heist, I think that would have solved the dilemma of what was so problematic about their romance in the book to begin with, in my opinion. But alas, you know, that doesn't fucking matter anymore. That doesn't matter. I just can't believe that there's like 2 different sex scenes with straight couples in this season, plus like some nice intimate moments with Jesper and Wyland. But the dykes in this show do not even get to kiss. He had Tamar and Nadia in this. They were both so hot and beautiful, and they don't even get to say. They were like, oh, I'll get you some snacks or something. What? It was so cringe. I couldn't do it.
That's what the lesbians be doing. They just be getting each other snacks. Like, that's all that happens. I'm watching the L Word. That's literally all that's going on in it.
Okay, listen, it's a crime that they used Crooked Kingdom as filler content for Shadow and Bone. Anyways, Kaz and Inej, you know, they're my forever girls. I love them forever. Amita Suman and Freddie Carter, like, you did everything you could. Moving on to Yellowjackets season 2, which I remember last year's wrap up. We were like, oh my god, I'm so excited for season 2 that's about to happen. Please know that mere weeks after recording that episode, we just started hating everything.
Yeah.
So this was quite a weak season. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, so, you know, I'm a TV enjoyer, you know, that's where I live. I'm always watching.
In the box.
You know, it really grinds my gears when series are bad, because the thing about TV, you keep investing because you're like, maybe it'll get better. Maybe it'll get better. Especially if, like, with Yellowjackets, the first season was really good. So you're thinking, surely this will pick up because the first season was so good. Surely it can't be this bad the entire way through. No, it was. For me, this season was so weak. I feel like maybe, given what we learned about the writing process for shows during the strikes, maybe it was extremely rushed. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But I just feel like this was the TV equivalent of, like, watered down lukewarm cordial they give you in preschool, where it's like, sure, you know, like, it's sweet and you can drink it and it'll quench your thirst, but, you know it should be better.
It feels like someone that went to a prestigious art school and was given $1 million just came to me with a finger painting.
It absolutely baffles me that the same people who did season 1 came out with this. I'm not sure what happened, but the last episode, or the last couple of episodes where they were like, oh, there's nothing for it, we just have to hunt Shauna in the woods. I was like, what? This has never been a solution to anything. Ever in the world. Both plot lines in the show completely lost it for me. Even the way they did the cannibalism was really lame. It was quite thoughtless as well, which really disappointed me considering how thoughtful the first season seemed. To have such a thoughtless follow-up where it just seemed like, you know, ideas were being thrown at the wall and they were just seeing what stuck. And also, like, coming up with a lot of things that looked cool, right?
Yeah.
But they mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is that, you know, we met the adult Van and Lottie, and I think they were really well cast. You know, I was actually really excited to meet them. Like, Lottie is my favorite of the gals. It's just really disappointing to see how the show kind of dissipated into an edgy Tumblr page.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because as you were, like, describing it just now, I just realized I'm like, oh, you could talk about Killing Eve season 2 this way. You know how like the first season of Killing Eve, everyone was like, wow, Sandra Oh, and also this new person, what's her name? But then, you know, by the time season 2 came out, Jodie Comer was a bit more of a name, and so they stopped relying so much on Sandra Oh and started pushing it more Jodie Comer. This is how I feel about the adult cast versus the teenager cast in Yellowjackets and the way that it's split. I think it was like extremely uneven. How many episodes was this season? 8 episodes? It was like way too much for like the very thin amount of plot that they were actually working with. A lot of it felt just like a waste of time, and a lot of it felt like, oh, okay, you know what? We don't need to bother with like the star power and skill of these veteran actresses that we needed to rely on in the first season. We're just gonna see what these kids can do. Like, sure, they can do a lot, but not enough, and not when they're being given a garbage script. I just think that Yellowjackets isn't actually gay enough to have its reputation be that it's the lesbian cannibal show. It was fun when it was like, okay, there's lesbians, but also, you know, there's some gay vibes going on between anyone, and also, ooh, maybe cannibalism. But now, having seen the second season and seeing how they follow through with that, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to call this a lesbian show. Like, there's 2 lesbians in it, and people hate the black one. The writers hate the black one. Everything done to Thaisa this season was terrible. Everything done to Lottie this season was terrible, and it just felt very racialized. The violence was so much more racialized this season. If you compare how certain characters were brutalized, how Lottie and Ty were brutalized physically in comparison to like what happened to white characters this season, I think it's really fucking sus.
And also, like, who does the violence to them?
Yeah, it's not great.
The way adult Thaisa is framed as, like, so evil because of how she's got this trauma, whereas everyone else is given, like, so much grace to be fucking insane. But, like, Thaisa and Lottie, the show frames as what she's doing is the worst, like, the objective worst.
Honestly, I think the way that Shauna treats her daughter is, like, worse than anything. I do think it was kind of, like, reduced to dark, edgy humor quips as well. A lot of Shauna's stuff. I don't like that. This is what happens when you let There's No Book Club go viral. But yeah, it's just a shame.
A lot of stuff would just happen, so you go, oh, wow. Wow, they're doing that, you know?
Oh, wow, she's having like a Twin Peaks hallucination. Oh, wow, nice Fight Club reference. Oh, wow.
But then it would be like, why are they doing that?
Why?
Why are they doing that? The only part of this show that we were enjoying was
Misty and Frodo.
And Frodo.
Walter?
And Walt.
Yeah.
And Misty and Walt. Real sad that they just kind of dropped off. I had so much fun for like 2 episodes and then nothing. But I will end this section by saying that my parents, they spend a lot of time in Aotearoa, and like they, you know, basically live there for half the year, and they were having coffee in the town that they live in, and Elijah Wood was just chilling, also having coffee. And my mum, who's like a huge Lord of the Rings fan, she was like, I'm going to go and say hello. And then they found out that he was also just temporarily living there. So my parents were just hanging out with Elijah Wood for a few weeks. And they would send me, like, every couple of days, they would be like, we had coffee with our friend today. It would just be them with Elijah Wood. But anyway, moving on.
Oh, we have Succession Season 4, which we don't really need to talk about, I don't think.
We don't need to talk about. We have a whole episode where we've talked about it.
We're even coming out with another episode.
Where we talk about it more.
At some point. Succession Season 4, Dewey kisses guys on Molly. Anyway, next up we have The Great Season 3. I just realized that we haven't been giving like little synopses for these shows as we start them, I guess because a lot of them are second or third series of things. So The Great, created by Tony McNamara, starring Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult. It's a historical Catherine the Great biopic show that we love. Go, Mary.
We love.
And rest in peace to this one as well. We're going to say
rest
this a
in
lot
peace.
this episode.
Not all because of the strikes, but a lot of these shows were cancelled after the strikes or during the strikes.
Or before.
And to be clear, I do not blame the strikes for that, because I don't blame people trying to get paid for their work for studios being shitty. In Season 3, a shout out to Catherine. There was a great scene where she was like, yeah, look, I tried lesbianism and it was not for me. There's a scene where one of the other women, Georgina, is a character who is very much like an antagonist for most of the show. She becomes quite close to Catherine, and there's this iconic scene where she's like, hey, Catherine, remember that time I ate you out? And Catherine's like, yeah, didn't enjoy that. Like, not for me, not for me. Other than Catherine in the show, we obviously have Archie and Elizabeth on the team up this season because they were very suspicious of Catherine, as they often are, but there was a lot going on. And when Archie and Elizabeth team up, it's like very like, I don't want to say Woollawah Mullum hostility, but in this case it's like Woollawah Mullum conspiracy, because they're conspiring to take Catherine down and then they change their mind. Archie, I love Archie. He's so horrible.
Archie's like if Roman Roy was interesting to me.
Yeah, if Roman Roy actually had things to do. He's the patriarch of the church. Yeah. He's repressed as shit and being a dick about it. In relation to Roman Roy, I think with The Great and Succession, it shows how, like, some twerp repressing their gay horniness can lead, like, to, like, the downfall of regimes in many ways.
I love how you spelled regimes here.
I know, sorry, spelling is a colonial construct, and I don't appreciate. I'm really sad, actually, about The Great being cancelled. It really was, like, one of my absolute favourite shows.
And it was such a perfect season of television as well. It's so excellent. Everything about The Great has, like, always been excellent. I have never actually been opposed to any narrative decision that's ever been made on this show. Like, even the ones that make me sad, like the one that happened in the first episode of this season.
Yes.
To my guy.
Yes.
It's such tight storytelling and just had such a clear vision. You could say that it ended on a good point where you can be like, yeah, this is it. But we know that it was meant to be more. I feel robbed. Catherine and Peter, they are incredible. It was amazing. Like, I really got everything that I wanted.
I was really excited to see this show when it was just Catherine and see what Tony McNamara would do with that, and we're never going to get to see that. Elle Fanning is so brilliant in the show. It kills me that she's never really won anything for this. It kills
me that, like, Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult have never not been nominated for Best Actor and Best Actress in Comedy Series at Emmys and Golden Globes ever since the show started. They've never won anything, and this year they didn't get any.
And this is like the last year that they can get anything now. They're both so good. I could watch them in like 10 other million things together. They're just so good. Rest in peace to the great. You will be missed so much.
Another good takeaway from this season is that I think Nicholas Hoult needs to do another gay movie again. Because right now all we have is a single man. He doesn't give a very good performance. And also Skins, where he also doesn't give a very good performance in a different kind of way.
I watched Renfield recently and I was really shocked he wasn't gay in that.
I know. Anyways, I mentioned this because that one scene where Nick Hoult as Pukachev and Archie are like about to fuck was like, wow.
Ugh. Wow. Yeah.
He's a special boy.
He's a special boy. He's a special boy.
He's a very talented boy.
A very talented boy.
Everyone go watch About a Boy 2003. Next up, we have Warrior Season 3, which is a crime drama set post-Gold Rush, San Francisco, Chinatown. It's like Peaky Blinders, but they're Asian, is often the short description that people provide when they're talking about this show. This show was actually cancelled. This show has been on many networks, actually.
It's got like 9 lives, this show.
Yeah, this show started on Cinemax, and then, Cinemax became... And then after 2 seasons, it was cancelled because Cinemax was being wrapped up. And then it got renewed for its 3rd season on Max. This show has had quite several lives. The first 2 seasons, admittedly, I don't think they deserved those lives. I've spoken on the podcast before about how much this show frustrates me and like the racism and like the white gaze of it all and the centering of whiteness in this show that's supposedly about Asian Peaky Blinders. Why am I hearing about the white politicians all the time and the white hate crimey guys on the side all the time instead of this? When it was first cancelled after season 2, I was rejoicing because I was really happy about it. The reason that I was only watching it was because its cast are like some of my favorite actors all working in the same thing. Like you have Joe Taslim, you have Andrew Koji, you have Olivia Chang, Diane Dwan. They're just so good. And also it's a sibling rivalry drama as well. That's what I loved about it. But I was glad to see it go. But then it got renewed for season 3 and I had very low hopes. So it being a good show in its 3rd season is incredible. I think it's good because they actually changed showrunners. It did feel much fresher, and something that was really good about this season as well, in that like obviously it's set in post Gold Rush San Francisco when there was a lot of racism. I don't know if you knew that. What's really interesting about this season is it actually focuses more on the political violence of what's happening to them instead of just on the streets, oh, this Irish guy hates us kind of thing. They kind of focus a bit more on the systemic core of this violence, which I think is brilliant. This show actually is surprisingly gay for what it is. Atoy, she's a major character who is based on a real person. She's one of my favorite characters. She runs a brothel, and she's also kind of like Moonlight as a vigilante that kills racists. She also kind of like secretly owns property, even though she's not allowed to because she's Chinese. She is bisexual, and in season 2 she did get a girlfriend who was a bit of a white savior, which I didn't like, but I do like how in this season their conversations go like a lot deeper and address the harmful limitations of white saviorism, because her girlfriend is this woman, she's a widower, and like she uses her money to buy Chinese girls out of their contracts who were sold to brothels, like out of their contracts so that they can live away. Yeah, anyway, Atoy and her GF were nice in this. Also, Hong, he's this guy who is part of the main crew. He's guy number 3.
Okay.
In that, you know, there's the vague character, there's his boy best friend, and then there's also Hong, who has always been a character that you know is gay from the get-go. In season 3, he's played by Chen Tang, who's beautiful. He's got like the most lovely smile. He gets a boyfriend in season 3. They're very sweet. Something that I really appreciate about Hong is this is a martial arts show where, you know, like all these actors have amazing backgrounds in these things. And I like how Hong, a character that everyone knows is gay, he is still kind of shown in the same kind of ferocity that the other characters are, committing the same level of violence, and it's never kind of a gimmick, even though he's kind of like a happy-go-lucky character with a pretty good attitude, and his sexuality is never shown as to be incongruous with that, which I really, really love and appreciate about Warrior. So his boyfriend is a singer, and through their little subplot we get kind of a peek at the queer underground of the time, and it's really interesting because there's a really great episode where they're at the club and they see this white gay
They're at the club?
who is a cop that literally tried to fucking kill Hong yesterday. I thought it was just like a really cool bit about how safe are queer spaces if cops are around, and cops have never deserved to be welcomed at Pride ever, which I thought was like very poignant. I think Warrior as well is a very interesting place of all places to say something like this. In terms of the main plot, it ended really well, and I'm really sad. I don't think it's coming.
I thought it did get cancelled.
It's technically cancelled. It's going on Netflix, and if it does well on Netflix, they might make more. I can't in good conscience actually recommend Warrior to people because season 1 and 2 are just appalling in my opinion.
But they will also like constantly talk about it.
Yeah, but I will also constantly talk about it because I have opinions. Me and my 3 friends that watch this show have opinions. I'm glad that it got good, and I'm a bit sad that it's cancelled. I'll survive. Okay, next up.
Doom Patrol. Speaking of a show that very much outlived itself. I didn't say that in a bad way. I just think that the kinds of stories that Doom Patrol is telling, they could go on forever in theory.
Yeah, it's because it's like a comic book, you know? Comics go on
yeah,
forever.
Yeah.
Can you give a quick synopsis of Doom Patrol?
The premise of Doom Patrol is that Timothy Dalton is an old man who wants to experiment on people because he wants to be immortal. But he can't be bothered to do these experiments himself. So what he does is he waits and sits around in his little superpowered wheelchair for people to be experimented on, and then if they've achieved immortality through an accident or experimentation or torture or whatever the fuck, he's like, cool, I'm just going to claim this person and make them come live in my house so I can study them and become immortal.
And the people that he pick are like DC superheroes that aren't super.
Yeah, they're like C-tier
They are
DC
Z-list.
Z-list. But the thing about this Z-list is that it's weirdly stacked, like for a cast. Got Brendan Fraser in this show playing one of the characters who was in a car accident, and then Timothy Dalton's character took this opportunity to extract his brain and put it in a Tin Man. And was like, oh, cool, I've just achieved giving immortality. But it's like, oh, did you think about the fact that the brain would still deteriorate? Anyway. And then you've also got Diane Guerrero. She plays a character whose dissociative identity disorder is so strong, that she has, like, special abilities with every different personality. And then, you know, there's also Matt Bomer in this show. Oh, well, quote-unquote Matt Bomer. His voice is in this show would be a more accurate thing to say.
Same with Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, same
It's
with
like,
Brendan
this
Fraser.
cast is weirdly stacked. They're also doing this over Skype.
They're also doing this remotely most of the time. Matt Bomer is gay in the show because he's gay in most things. He plays Larry Traynor, who's a World War II pilot who got irradiated so badly that he became immortal, but also can't touch anyone because he's super irradiated, which is big sad.
He's touch-starved.
He's so touch-starved, you guys. There's a whole episode, though, where he goes to the club, and it's really nice. But anyway, by season 4, everyone is kind of either gay or bi in this show, but I will say that in this show, there is actually quite a lot of, I won't say trans representation necessarily, but, like, trans-affirming narratives. There are, like, recurring characters who are drag queens and recurring characters who are trans, and by the end of the show, the majority of the main cast either realize they're gay or go off with a partner. I wouldn't say that the final season is particularly good. I felt like it was a slog most of the time. If you like superhero stuff that's kind of weird, and instead of just being American imperialism propaganda, then, you know, Doom Patrol is where it's at. It's actually a lot gayer than I think people realize. One of my favorite characters is Denny, the genderless amorphous being who is a street. They call him Denny the Street because he's literally like an amorphous planet that turns into a street, and the people that he allows to live in his little dimension are all like trans people and queer people. There's a whole episode where the drag queens come and save the Doom Patrol, and it's just really nice. Michelle Gomez was also in the last 2 seasons, which was very nice for me as a gay person because I love her. That's all I want to say about Doom Patrol because I honestly think that only me and 3 other people watch it. Heartstopper season 2. I watched this. I don't know why, because I didn't like season 1.
You took one for the team.
I took one for the team. Best part for me was the teachers who were gay. The art teacher that helps the main boy in the first one, and then there's a new teacher in the second season who the actor is Iranian, and there's just like a really sweet scene where they're on an excursion to France with the children, and they just have a nice little hookup, and it's really cute. The art teacher is kind of like, oh, didn't you have the experience of like being a gay teenager? The other teacher is like, no, I didn't, because I didn't realize I was gay until I was like 29. I honestly think that was kind of built into the show as like a nice acknowledgement, because I don't know if anyone remembers this, but there was a phenomenon when Heartstopper came out of people in their 20s watching the show and kind of being depressed because they were like, oh, I never got to have this.
People past their 20s.
You know, I never got to have this because I wasn't able to be out when I was younger. And I think like these 2 characters sort of exist in the story to acknowledge that and to say that it's okay. And there's still niceness and love in the world that you can have. The other thing that I really want to talk about, because I love them so much, is Elle and Tao. Elle, of course, played by Yasmin Finney, who we love. Listen, guys, listen. I normally really hate best friends to lovers, and I especially hate it when they're in high school because I'm like, your brains aren't even developed. You have your whole life ahead of you. As you have said, Dee, it's also just so emblematic of like the lack of growth in people. Look, I say this as if like they're all bad. It's not. I know people who are married very happily who met in high school. It's I'm not talking about it like it's the worst thing in the world. It's just not a storyline I enjoy because I think it's boring. But I think in part like the reason I love like Elle and Tao is because, you know, Elle is trans, and the whole thing with that is that she had to come out and grow into herself, and he probably didn't see her the same way because Elle is trans. It's not the same as any other kind of best friends to lovers that I've ever seen. In this instance, in a huge part because like Elle is trans, and obviously all her friends, because everyone is very lovely in Heartstopper, that's the point, are also accepting like they both had to grow in order to fall in love with each other, which is like really nice.
Oh, it's like Rurangi.
Yeah, it's like Rurangi.
Rurangi, the main character, is a trans man who comes back to his hometown after transitioning. He with his high school boyfriend who didn't really know, and there's this really sweet little scene. He's like, well, I guess you weren't like the other girls, to which the main character, he just replies like, yeah, because I wasn't a girl.
Yeah, I love that scene.
It's really nice to see kind of the way that they grow in each other. I'll just quickly mention now, I haven't watched this yet, but there's a second season of Rurangi that came out last year that haven't seen yet. I will get on that though. Sorry.
But that's okay. But yes, I just love Elle and Tao like in Heartstopper. They were my favorite thing about season 1, and they were also my favorite thing about season 2. Because I also just think Yasmin Finney is a wonderful actress, and I hope she gets to be in more things. I mean, she already got cast in Doctor Who.
That means something good for her, really good for her in 5 years.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And she's so young. It's going to be incredible.
I'm so excited for her. My overall review of season 2 is that there was too much francophilia. So much of the season takes place when they're in France on an excursion. I'm phobic of France, and so I didn't like this. And, I have to remind myself constantly, this is a show about kids, and it's primarily aimed at kids, so I have to, constantly sit there and be like, it's a show for kids, that's why it's like that. It's a show for kids, that's why it's like that.
What's it like?
It's too prescriptive, even for a kids show. I don't know why everybody talks in this show like they've read some kind of parenting book on things to say to your child when they have XYZ. It really frustrates me. Just to give an example, I mean, there are some really good TikToks ripping this off, but I'll just give an example that's actually in the show that I found really frustrating. Charlie is the main character of the show. He has an eating disorder, and there is a sequence where they're at the Louvre, and Charlie has not eaten in quite a while. The show makes a point to show you this, that he is not eating. And so by the time they get to the Louvre, he hasn't eaten for a few days and he's not very well because of it. And he passes out. The thing that really frustrates me is that when he wakes up, what he says to Nick, his boyfriend, literally just sounds like he's reading off the definition of an eating disorder. He's like, oh yes, sometimes I feel out of control in my life, and when I do, I restrict or I don't eat things, and it makes me feel in control. In my experience, both as someone who grew up with similar issues, but also as sometimes I have talked to students who struggle with this, you're just not that aware of things. And even if you were, you're not going to talk about it in such a cold way, such a prescriptive way. Something that really frustrates me about Heartstopper, it's like they're so frightened of anyone saying anything that isn't 100% positive or affirming. I don't believe it. I just don't believe that a teenage boy is going to talk like this, especially when we know boys with eating disorders, they're way more less likely to talk about it than girls. I know there are people who really love this kind of representation where there's not really any conflict, but it really frustrates me that when this show actually sets up a conflict, for example, Charlie not eating and keeping that from everybody, it just fizzles out because everyone's so nice. There's never any problem. It feels really unrealistic, and it's just not for me. I like shows that actually have conflict in them. Sorry.
Yeah, the thing about with Heartstopper being very clinical. Obviously, it's great that Charlie has good friends that don't handle his eating disorder badly. Of course, it's great.
Of course, yes.
I guess that, there are people that really love this show who are really happy to see oh, hey, it's not that hard to not be weird about this. But the thing is, it is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. And in real life, there are conflicts, narratives that actually do have a conflict, that actually isn't afraid to, briefly traumatize their audience for a little bit just to put a message through. I find that a lot more helpful and a lot more teachable to a young audience than a freaking educational script. Yeah, obviously, Heartstopper, the show itself gives a very safe space for its audience, which is good. We've talked before about how we don't really like watching high school media anymore anyway, or just kids media anyway, because we're too old for this. What even happened in this show? Because it's not oh, and it all turned out all right in the end. It's no, it's just all right.
It's just always all right.
It's just always all right. And there's nothing kind of note. If you really want to talk about Heartstopper as representation, as teachable representation, which I think a lot of people kind of are talking about it in this way because it's for kids, and a lot of the fans are like, yeah, but it's for kids and it's good that kids are seeing this. I think it's good to show something that helps people recognize what conflict is. For instance, microaggressions, or just things being handled poorly, and these things happen to you and you don't really see it, but then when you see it on a TV show or something, and it's framed in a way where you do see oh, hey, this actually is a problem. It is a problem that someone spoke to me like that. It is a problem that this was my mom's reaction to this. It's just more compelling to see, especially because these characters are so young and they're living in such an exciting time. I believe there's a Heartstopper in this universe.
Yeah.
In the universe of Heartstopper that's teaching them all the things, They're so young, they're living in such an exciting time where I'm not going to say that everything's fixed, but especially where they are in England at their social class, etc. It's actually pretty fucking dandy for them. It would be really cool to see these kids live in a space where they can openly work their way through these issues, which are which are taught to them as they grow, because they have the space to work through these things. Like, why don't you just use the space?
As you've said, in life, even, as a gay person or a trans person, you're going to get things wrong. It's going to take you a while to work things
People
out.
are going to say the wrong things to you and you won't realize.
You might even say the wrong things to people and you won't realize. The thing that I find frustrating about Heartstopper is that 95% of the time, it's like everyone magically knows the right thing to say all the time. And that's just not, unless it's just as pure escapism, which I guess Heartstopper is. I just don't think it's helpful to show kids a show where everything is perfectly fine. Everyone says the right thing all the time, because that's just not what happens when you grow up.
And like, you're a teacher and there's a reason that like these spaces that still need to be made for kids.
Yeah, of course. And I do think the idea of the show for kids of that age, they're not being made, and so there is like a real issue. So I do think Heartstopper is feeling like a very important need. At the same time, I don't think it's free from criticism. It lacks a lot of intersectionality in how it shows things, and it is extremely clinical. The author and writer of the books and the TV show, Alice Osman, the way that they write these is by Googling big no-nos, for when you have a gay teen, and then they just do the opposite of that. Like, they're very frightened of any kind of friction in the narrative, and I just find that quite boring and, on another level, kind of existentially unhelpful. Heartstopper 2, love the teachers, love Ellen Tao, love Yasmin Finney.
Love and support the cast,
Yeah, love and support the cast.
It's not easy being openly LGBT in this industry.
I do not condone what happened to Kit Connor. That was fucked up.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on, we have Newsreader Season 2! I feel like we've been such haters so far in this episode. I'm really sorry. We've either been haters or we've been mourners, so now we are.
So now we're happy in a natural element, natural state.
So the Newsreader, which I don't think we've ever talked about on the podcast before. It's a series that started in 2021 or 22. It's like our favourite show, The Hour, but it's Australian and it's more bisexual.
And it's in the 80s.
Yeah, it's in the late 70s to 80s, and it's about a female newsreader played by Anna Torv, who's trying to keep her job with the help of her cringe-fail bisexual boyfriend played by Sam Reed. Every episode covers like a significant historical event and also about the people who tell these stories and the drama involved. And it's just good TV.
Every episode you're like, wow, I hope Dale Jennings and Helen Norville have a good date.
Where nothing bad goes wrong, and then they show the date and you're like, oh shit.
My best friend Dale Jennings, Sam Reed is king of toxic bisexual representation. I hesitate to put this in the same category as Lestat.
No, the thing is, Sam Reed is like a perfect spectrum of toxic bisexuality, where you have Lestat on one end and Dale Jennings on the other.
There's more than one way to be a toxic bisexual, guys. Sam Reed, he has taken it upon himself to show you all those ways.
My best friend, he's Australian and he went to a
Sorry, I meant Dale's my best friend. What I like about this show as an Australian journalist is it shows the subtle and also not so subtle racism and homophobia that's like baked into Australian media. And when I say baked, I mean baked. Like, it's cooked in there, baby.
The foundation.
It's the foundation.
It's the eggs.
You can't take it out. I think it shows how these biases that are inherent to these organizations, they corrupt people, even people who have good intentions. You're just part of this institution that represents a very particular thing and promotes a very particular thing. I think the show deals with this in lots of different ways with lots of different characters. Dale, the main character, like, he's bisexual, obviously, even though he's not out, like, he's very closeted. He is still affected by the homophobia where he works. It is quite horrible what he has to do.
Yeah, it's period accurate.
Helen, as a woman, and especially as a woman with mental illness who's been institutionalized, it shows the ableism and the misogyny that's inherent in these places. You have other characters. Nolene, she's Korean, and it shows the sort of racialized misogyny that she experiences. and how she doesn't have the same options as someone like Helen. It's just a really brilliant show, and I really like the way that it doesn't show those things in a clinical way.
Mm-hmm. The beauty of it is that you do have the face value news media that gets put out about the issue, and then you have the people who are dealing with it. It's such a good contrast. It's about people just trying to tell their stories and not being able to tell stories.
Especially with Helen and her medical history, and also Dale with him being closeted. I think it shows how, even if these things are not visible to people, it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that those biases that are entrenched in these places don't affect you.
Yeah.
It's just really, really well done. Sam Reed's performance of Shame in this season is just unparalleled.
He's the full spectrum, baby.
My last note here is listen to the Newsreader by queer Australian muso Alex Leahy. It's a really nice little song, and I think the ABC even added it to their Newsreader playlist, even though it's not in the show, because when she released it, everyone thought, oh my god, this is about the Newsreader, but it's actually about the fact that she had a huge crush on this ABC reporter in Victoria and she just wrote a song about how much she had a crush on the reporter. And the way I found out about this is that ABC set up an interview where Alex Leahy met the reporter that the song is about. It was just really cute. And it's just a nice little song. Please watch the Newsreader.
And it has been renewed for season 3. Thank you.
Woohoo!
It's just really excellent, the way that it's made. Shout out to Tim from Camera, most beautiful man on TV.
Oh, and shout out to Hunter Page Lockhart, who did a great job with his role in this season in the bicentennial episode.
Yes. Shout out to the Lachlan Murdoch shade with Daniel Gillies' character this season. Shout out to that one moment where Paul Keating popped up on screen and they were like, yeah.
So true.
And extremely accurate representation of what it's like to drive in Canberra. So next up we have the series Boiling Point, which is a 4-part miniseries that's actually a sequel to a movie from 2021 with the same name, Boiling Point. So this movie, Boiling Point, it's all shot in one take, and it's about a crazy night at a restaurant and kind of showing the experiences of the staff, including the chefs and also the waiters, and the way that they have to deal with customers and various issues, all in one take. And it was definitely on the mood board for The Bear, which came out the year afterwards. It's very much like The Bear, but with the added stress of customer service.
Which The Bear should have.
Actually, I'm glad that it doesn't, because what we're already dealing with. But it stars Vinette Robinson and Ray Panthaki. Vinette, she's kind of like an older, more tired version of Sydney from The Bear, except if Kami had a heart attack at the end of that one-take episode of season 1 of The Bear, because that's literally the premise. Spoilers for the movie, but at the end of the movie, the head chef, he has a heart attack after all of that, and it's wow, so true. And then the show follows Vinette's character as she's setting up a new restaurant in the aftermath of that. Yeah, so Vinette Robinson's character, she's gay and probably closeted. That's only really a small detail of her character, because she's just too stressed out about running her restaurant and looking after her mum. I think it's a really good show. I think it's shot in a really fun way. In the show, there's also a few other queer staff. I think there's a lot of little bits throughout about speak to what it's like to be queer and openly queer or visibly queer when you're working in the service industry. Some characters have to kind of play up stereotypes to entertain people, or your pronouns, or signifiers you choose to wear. There's this kind of funny scene where this character who's non-binary, one of the customers who's an elderly lady, is I love that pin you're wearing. What country's flag is that? And it's the non-binary flag. And they have to explain what it is. It's a good little interaction, and just little things like that throughout the show. I think it's just really well made, and I highly recommend it.
Alright, so next up we have While the Men Are Away, which is an Australian lesbian period drama set during World War II. Follows members of the Women's Land Army who uncover a dead body on the property that they're tending to. This show is amazing. I could never imagine, if you had told me even just 2 years ago that an Australian show like this was being made, I would not have believed you. The lesbian sex scenes are of the horniest quality. I am so amazed at what I saw in this show. Not to sound scandalized, but because I wasn't. But there are women doing things in this show that I've personally never seen anything else. I was just like, wow, I've never seen that on television, but good for them. This show is very honest about that from the beginning. The opening montage of this show is a montage of what, the women are getting up to while the men are away. And the montage is mostly made up of women having sex with each other and having a great time.
Yay!
It is presented in a very comedic way and also a very period accurate way, because obviously this is World War II. Wasn't a great time for a lot of people, but I am amazed at just how much this show gets in. It's a very intersectional show in that way. There is a bisexual character mourning his lover who died fighting in the war. One of the girls from the Women's Land Army is Jewish, and she's kind of discovering that she enjoys kink, which is good for her. I think there's 3 lesbian characters, 2, and one of them goes on a very cool gender journey. The woman whose farm they're on, where they find the dead body, she's an Italian immigrant, and if you know anything about Australia, for Italian immigrants in World War II, it was a really terrible place for them. Italians were interned in literal labor camps here during World War II. She's also a lesbian. And there's also an Aboriginal character, and she has her own plotline that does align with the others, but is also separate for very obvious reasons, because, she's an Aboriginal woman in World War II. But she's also a delightfully horny character. There is an iconic scene where she and one of the girls from the Women's Land Army, they decide they want to go to the movies, and the white girl is like, oh my god, but how are you going to go to the movies? She's like, sweetie, I'm not going to the movies. And then cut to them at the movies, and the Aboriginal woman, she has this disguise that she wears when she goes to the movies, and it's just a grieving widow with full veil and everything. And then she puts on this southern accent, oh, I only come into town, when my grief allows me. And all the white women she interacts with thinks she's some white southern belle because they've never seen her face. And non-binary Australian icon Max McKenna plays one of the main characters. It's just a really, really amazing show. Oh, and speaking of other Australian shows, which I very much enjoyed and were specific to my interests this year,
Australian TV was kind of popping.
It was in 2023. It was just popping. We also have Class of '07. The premise of Class of '07 is that a bunch of women at their high school reunion. 2007 is what, 15 years? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's their 15-year high school reunion. It's for one of those really fancy private Catholic schools in the mountains. And then while they're there, the world ends, a biblical flood of some kind, and they become isolated. Because the school is on higher ground, they're kind of fine in there, but it just means that they now live there for the foreseeable future because there can't be anywhere else. This was an all-girls school, so it's just women. It's not necessarily a gay show. Some of the characters are gay. Look, my review is that there wasn't enough lesbianism. I understand they were dealing with a lot, i.e. the end of the world. Yeah. But I think that just would have elevated it just that little bit, It's one of my favorite shows of 2023. I really adored it. Megan Smart and Emily Browning, they just should have been exes. That's the way the show frames it anyway. They were best friends who had some kind of big blow up, and a part of the thing is why did this happen? Why did two best friends break up like this? But it's framed so much like a breakup. I'm like, why didn't you just make it a breakup? Why couldn't they have just been this is silly. Also, my biggest mystery with this show, and I'll be asking it forever and ever, is why wasn't Phoebe Tonkin in this show? I really can't understand why Phoebe Tonkin isn't in this show. I really love this show. It's on Amazon Prime. I think this has some of the best dialogue of any show of the year.
They're voting who to cannibalize in episode 2 Survivor style.
I love how in Yellowjackets the cannibalism is quasi-religious, and it's really oh my god, I can't believe they're doing this, whereas in Class of '07 they're oh well, fuck it, we have to do the cannibalism, we may as well be democratic about it, let's have a Survivor style, vote them off the island. It's really mean. They're you were mean to me in year 8, you didn't like my hair. It's very Australian, but I think the humour of it is well done in the way that I don't think it's one of those shows that's so Australian other people wouldn't get it. It's just really well done. Next up, we have Fall of the House of Usher,
which is a Mike Flanagan show. It's a mini-series. I think Netflix just told Mike Flanagan to be like, hey, can you make something that's like Succession? And he was like, I'll make this Edgar Allan Poe short story like Succession, and these are the results.
We did a whole bonus episode on this.
But yeah, it's a show basically about a bunch of siblings who are the heirs to a empire of wealth created by this one man who owns the patent to revolutionary painkiller, and about how the family's cursed and they're all dying off one by one. A lot of them are gay or bisexual. It's very bizarre because I feel like Mike Flanagan doesn't hate rich people enough. The satire just doesn't really land.
He believes there's such a thing as like a good rich person, which there really isn't.
Yeah.
And this really comes through in the show where they're like, oh, how evil are these rich people?
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of go, yeah, that's for real. But then you'll be like, but this one isn't. And you're like, okay. Sure, bud.
Yeah, this one doesn't deserve it. It starts out being kind of fun and outrageous, but I think it kind of devolves into everything that I have a problem with Mike Flanagan for anyway. Tania Miller is in it, and she's beautiful.
Yeah.
And
I would really love it if she could be in things that aren't these shows or shows that get cancelled.
Or like shows where she doesn't die in like the same episode that she gets introduced.
Yeah.
The Hannah Gross episode of Haunting of Bly Manor is still like one of the best episodes of TV ever. I remember when I was first watching Bly Manor, I was like, oh my god, this is when it gets good. This show is like so good now. And then it just goes back to being shit. Also, shout out to Kate Siegel looking like that as well in Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah.
Next up, we have... Oh, no.
Next up, we have Good Omens Season 2, which came out this year. We did a bonus episode on this, so if you're really keen to hear
our fresh thoughts,
please go and listen to that. It did get a Season 3 as of time of recording. Season 2, Neil Gaiman really held everybody's hand and let them know that sometimes celestial beings are gay.
People can be gay,
which...
Stephen.
I really do love that Neil Gaiman's big follow-up to End of the World, series about the end of the world, is like, what if these two gays help these lesbians fall in love? I kind of like to think of this season, it's like, you know, sometimes in order to set up a chessboard, you have to destroy the current game.
Yeah, it's just moving chess pieces into place.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, some people didn't like, some people liked. I thought it was fine. People were really mad at the ending. They're like, what? We were playing chess this whole time?
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's moving everything in place so that we can play the game, which is the real thing.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way to spend 6 hours. But this podcast was founded on on Good Omens, so we will, of course, be doing an episode about Season 2 properly and shortly. But if you want to hear our raw thoughts, that's on Patreon. If not, stay tuned, and that'll probably be one of our next coming episodes, I'd say.
I am firmly on the Good Omens Season 2 war, on the side of Good Omens Season 2. You know, if people didn't look at this show purely through a shipping lens, they would understand why the ending had to be like that, and that it's not actually, like, homophobic for the ending to be like that, but...
Yeah.
That's asking a lot of people, I suppose.
Team Crowley all the way. I'm on Crowley's side in this divorce, as always.
Yeah.
Aziraphale is a cop. Sorry,
but if you're not on Crowley's side, I don't trust you. I wouldn't let you drive me anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, Morning Show Season 3. Mary.
Okay, one day we're going to do an episode, I really hope, because someone did request it, that we're going to do, like, news media shows. And when we do, I will say my full piece about the morning show, because by God, I have much to say. Morning Show Season 3. Okay, so for people who don't know, the morning show is about Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, and they work at a morning show, and the first season is about sort of the unraveling of the host of the morning show is outed as a sexual predator. The first season is kind of the fallout from that. The second season is a COVID season, and third season is like, oh, we watched Succession Season 3 and we thought we'd just do that. So basically, Season 3 of the morning show is the network being acquired or attempting to be acquired by John Hamm, who is an untrustworthy billionaire. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Specifically a tech billionaire. The LGBT element of the show, or really just the LGB element of this show, is that Reese Witherspoon's character is bisexual. She is bi and she is in a relationship with another one of the hosts who works at the network, although I think in season 3 she's moved to a different network. They are in very much a committed relationship. And there is like a whole thing in season 2 where she's outed. It's pretty awful, actually, what happens and why, but I'll talk about that in our actual episode if we ever get to make it.
We will.
We will.
Be positive.
Be positive. I just think that every gay plot in this show exists in the most inauthentic and cynical way possible. I don't think they're meaningful. In every way, the morning show has become the very thing that it condemned in its first season. And I think that that is truly fascinating and truly horrible.
Okay. I'll just get Ted Lasso out of the way real quick because okay.
That was my attitude to the entire of the final season.
Yeah, Ted Lasso season 3, there's nothing nice for me to say. It's just garbage. Everyone in this show is way too nice, and I think the genuinely problematic elements of it are supposed to go over our head, but instead it's just very queasy inducing. I don't know.
Ted Lasso is like Heartstopper for adults.
It makes you uneasy. Anyways, it's like Heartstopper for adults, except they actually are cunts.
Yeah.
But we're not supposed to think that. You know, this is a show about how it's really important to be nice to everyone except to your wife. But anyways, Keely gets a girlfriend, which was slightly validating in that, you know, we've known. When I saw them, I realized like, oh my God, I haven't seen such a like TV femme couple on TV like in so long, you know? And it was silly.
It really was.
They finally follow through on Colin being gay, which is nice. And also there's some nice stuff with him and Trent, but also I think that if you want to make a show about toxic masculinity in sport and you're too cowardly to talk about homophobia in sport until your 3rd season, you shouldn't be making it.
Especially homophobia in the A-League, which is like actually a very huge problem.
In English football.
To the point where like when people have written about it, players still stay anonymous because they are so frightened of being out in the A-League. It's real bad.
Also, I just think it's very funny that they got a fan kicked off the pitch for saying the F slur at an English football match, and this is the first time that it's ever happened, and it was just the one guy. I feel like they need to.
Another incredible, and I don't mean incredible, I mean terrible moment of season 3 of Ted Lasso was when Sam he literally gets hate crimed like again. Like his restaurant experiences a hate crime, and this is solved within the show with the team coming together and being like, hate is bad.
This show is just not equipped to deal with anything seriously.
It's really bad.
I don't know, like you shouldn't have tried to go deeper because you don't want to go deeper.
I did write a whole article where I broke all of this down, so you can go and read that if you want. I just don't want to, I have nothing to say. I think Ted Lasso is just Heartstopper for adults. But it's worse because Heartstopper can get away with that because it's just a show about children. Ted Lasso can't because it's about adults. And also adults
in Heartstopper, like they're good people.
They're actually trying to be nice.
People that do good things.
Yeah.
Ted Lasso are about people that do quite bad things, but we're meant to see it as sweet. Like I don't.
Yeah.
Never mind.
We're moving.
I'm done.
We're moving on.
I'm done with this, as we all are. Anyway.
So next up is Daisy Jones and the Six. This is one of the, to me, worst watches of the year because I really enjoyed this book. I had a lot of fun reading it. And the thing about the book of Daisy Jones and the Six, it's about the breakup of this band. It's very obviously like a fan fiction of, what's it called?
Fleetwood Mac.
ABBA and Fleetwood Mac. It's written in like an interview format. You read the characters being interviewed about what happened 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and why they broke up. it's a very addictive read. It's written by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who wrote Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. The thing about Daisy Jones and the Six is that it's literally written as a script. When you read it's a script. I can't emphasize that enough. All you have to do is take that script and put it as a show, and the show didn't do that. I don't know why. It changed a lot of things. But one change that I think the only positive change that it made was there's a character called Simone in the book who is Daisy's black best friend, basically. And in the book, you don't know a lot about her. It just mentions stuff like she's a pioneer of the disco genre. And you're like, oh, cool, I would like to hear about that. And, you know, because this is a book about a bunch of white people, you never do. But in the show, they actually expand on Simone's whole what her life, what she's up to while Daisy Jones and the Six are breaking up and getting back together and whatever. And one thing they did do was make Simone a lesbian. Her and her butch girlfriend get a whole episode where you just get to see them living their life and pioneering disco and a bunch of other cool genres. And unfortunately, they add all this in and you're having such a great time just watching Simone live her best black lesbian life that you forget that this is a show about Daisy Jones and the Six. And so this becomes a plot line that exists so that you can be like, you know why Daisy's so toxic? Because she's also lesbophobic to her best friend. And it's like, why? This was also baffling because Daisy and Simone never have any kind of rift. It's like the one good relationship that Daisy has is with Simone. So this was a truly baffling choice. But still, it's got a whole gay episode, which is quite nice until you get to the lesbophobia, where Daisy is like, oh my god, Simone, like, you're just obsessed with me because you wanna be my lover. And it's like, that's no. It's so cringy. It's like, what? No, Daisy, why would she be? She's got the coolest butch DJ girlfriend ever. Like, why would she? Anyway, silly show. It changed too much from the book to even make sense. Didn't like it. Moving on. Okay. I went on a trip to Malta this year, and on the plane on the way from here in Australia to Malta, I binged Perry Mason season 1 and 2 because it was the only thing on the little plane thingy that I hadn't seen, and I thought, well, that'll keep me entertained. I didn't know that this show is actually quite gay, and season 2 came out at the beginning of 2023. So Perry Mason is a show about a guy who's a private detective in the 1930s, and him and his lesbian bestie, Della Street, they have a private detective agency / lawyer agency, and they solve crimes and then they defend people who have been accused of wrong crimes. And in season 2, they just continue to do that. It's all about Perry now being a lawyer and he's defending these 2 boys that are wrongly accused of murder. But the district attorney is Justin Kirk of Angels in America and Succession fame, and he's being blackmailed because he's a gay closeted guy to execute these 2 poor Mexican boys accused falsely of murder for some reason. Even though Perry Mason, the main character, the titular main character of Perry Mason, is supposedly straight, at one point he is asked by one of his clients, like, oh, you received like a dishonorable discharge, and that's only given out to people who are, number 1, black, number 2, queer, or they're deserters. And this client is like, so which one is it? And he's like, well, I would never desert my country, and I'm actually just Welsh, so... and I was only ever gay the once. And everyone in the room is like, so... but anyway, I just really enjoyed. I like a good sort of noir. Perry Mason is a sad special boy. Della Street, like his lesbian bestie who he solves all these crimes with, she's kind of like the secret protagonist of the show, because Perry Mason is often too miserable to get work done, so Della does most of the work, and yeah, it's just very cool that the secret protagonist of this show is actually Della Street, fabulous lesbian. And, she does, she's a lesbian the whole time. It's great.
The whole time.
I don't know. That's a weird way to phrase it. I should say, like, it's something from the first episode. Justin Kirk is her beard, and they have lots of funny scenes together where they're always at events being like, straight people. I found it a very, very sweet show. Sad that it got cancelled, but also, like, every season ended in a way where it's like, well, there's nothing more to say because every season focuses on a particular case. So, anyway, speaking of sadly cancelled, Minx season 2 aired this year, and rest in pieces again to Minx. That was cancelled twice, and this time it doesn't seem like it's going to come back from that. But season 2 was really great. It looked at a lot of things. So at the end of season 1, they get the magazine up and running. In season 2, they're trying to get independent funding for the magazine, which comes in the form of some rich capitalist lady. There's a lot in this season of looking at balancing, the demands of capitalism in the sense that you have to publish, like, normal and centrist stuff that's going to make money because a lot of people will read it. And so there's a lot in this season of how, like, the pressure from advertising and investing sort of enforces, like, homophobic and rather, like, heteronormative creative decisions. So Richie, who's their gay photographer, he really wants to do this beautiful photography series of gay men in bathhouses, and the editors keep stonewalling him and being like, no, like, our advertisers won't want to see that. I think that's a really interesting thing to look at, like the censorship of the pressures of advertising and capitalism, which is something that I have also personally experienced in my old job. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that anymore. It's not very nice. But there's also other plot lines in the show. There's a big, like, lesbian realization plot line with Shelley, and she realizes she's a lesbian through her writing, and she explores swinging and this whole other stuff before she realizes, nope, I'm definitely a lesbian. And then once she realizes that, she just starts living her best life, which is really nice to see, especially in a show that's, like, set at a very weird time. It's not like that would have been fully easy for her to do, but it's nice that the show, like, shows her doing that and shows her being happy. And I just want to mention it, even though it's it's not gay or nothing, but the Doug and Tina divorce in Minx season 2 was really hard for me. But also he was being such a dick, so I support it. But also it's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? So anyway, Minx season 2, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot better than the first season in a lot of ways. But yeah, we'll never get to see any more of that because, once again, it has been cancelled. Rest in peace.
Next up, sort of season 3, which was also cancelled but ended on a really good spot. I think they had fair warning,
Yeah, I do too.
Sort of is a Canadian series created by Bilal Baig, who is a non-binary Pakistani, and it follows the life of Sabi, who is a non-binary Pakistani person who is kind of beginning to transition in their life. And it's the best show ever in that when we talk about representation and diversity, obviously, like, I don't think it's good to be selfish in the way that you need to be like, oh, what if, well, there's nothing, like, representing me. Like, I do think it's important to support, like, all kind of diverse representation because, like, it's not just about seeing yourself and having, like, your identity validated in that way. It's also just about, equal employment opportunity and, supporting other people. And, if it's like, it's a step, but also
it's also about creating better systems.
Yes, and about creating better systems, which is why, I do think even if you are not specifically of that culture, I think you should do your best to, expand what you watch. And watch many different perspectives. But with sort of, is that I genuinely never thought that I would get something so specific to my identity as a non-binary half Pakistani person. But I did, and I will be forever grateful for it because sort of is such a beautiful show that's about how everyone is in transition in one way or another. It gives you, like, such a safe space to kind of look at yourself.
Yeah.
While also very much reflecting what's real about your life, like the good things and the bad things. And so I will always miss it. So this season, this is after Subby's father dies, and this is when Subby decides to begin medically transitioning. And it shows like how there's a lot of performative allyship in the health industry. One of the main resistances that Subby has is their doctor discouraging them, being like, "Oh, it's a bad time, you know, like your dad just died." It's like, when is it going to be a good time? There's quite a lot of hospital stuff in this, like not in a particularly dramatic way, but everyone's asking their pronouns, but also, you know, they don't. It's still shit. Like the medical healthcare system is still shit.
It's very surface level.
Very surface level accommodation.
Subby has to go find like a whole other doctor.
Played by Angelica Ross, and she's only in the one scene, but it's beautiful. There's a lot of great stuff with Wolfstad giving Subby advice on transitioning. I also really love how they make kind of a connection between lesbians and trans men, and how like experiences will overlap and like kind of help you see whether you're one or the other. Like it's just good for us to all, you know, be together and hang out is the most important thing, I think. There's also a sort of mini inheritance subplot. As Subby's father has died, and between Subby and their sister is not getting paid their dues. I did love this subplot because my family is Muslim, and my parents have reiterated many times that they were going to, like, when it comes to the time that they die, they're going to distribute funds, you know, based on Islamic law, which is that men get twice as much as women, because under the assumption that, you know, men have families to take care of. And women's money is their own. And obviously, you know, this is something like far ahead in my future, so I don't really have to worry about it. But watching this play out with Subby and their sister was very entertaining because, you know, like with me and my brothers, I'm like, you guys are just gonna, you know, transfer me, right? Like, you fucking better. Like, I don't want to go to court with this. You guys are just going to transfer me, okay? Okay. So seeing that play out on screen was also very fun.
My favorite character in sort of is Seven, who is Subby's best friend. She uses she/they pronouns. She is so funny. I think she's one of the funniest characters that's ever been created. In this third season, they were practicing celibacy badly, and it was one of the funniest subplots I've ever seen in a show. Seven is also trans, I believe.
We never really find out like specifically what Seven identifies as, but we just know that Seven is Seven.
Seven is Seven.
I think like they just have such a strong personality. Yeah, it's great.
Yep. I love them so much. Seven is who I want to be when I grow up. Other specific thing that I really loved in this season, when Wolf's dad is imparting some trans wisdom to Subby, he does it through talking about the song At 17 by Janice Ian, using that song to impart like this experience.
Isn't Janice Ian a character in Mean Girls?
Yeah, I know, it's weird, but like this is a real singer.
Okay.
And like the song At 17 is all about like, you know, feeling like an ugly duckling and feeling like you don't deserve love. And I loved this scene specifically because I only know that song because my dad would always play me that song, and when I was a teenager, and to show me that, like, you know, everyone feels this way. Everyone feels like very socially awkward and, you know, like you're never going to be loved when you're 17 years old. I don't know. It's good to know that experience is somewhat universal, or at least, you know, a shared experience. But yeah, sort of season 3 was it was definitely my favorite season of the show. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, anything else you want to say about sort of?
Subby and Bessie, I didn't win, but I didn't lose. That's all I have to say. All right. Next up, the Afterparty.
Oh, the Afterparty season 2. I don't know who it is at Apple that makes sure there's gays and lesbians in nearly everything that I've ever seen from them, but I'm very grateful. So the Afterparty, for those who don't know, is a whodunit sort of anthology show. There's been 2 seasons so far, and I think actually it got cancelled. But each individual season is its own whodunit crime, and every episode is kind of done in a way that it's kind of spoofing a particular genre or a particular style of filmmaking. And it's all done very tongue-in-cheek. Like, if you're a fan of Knives Out and that, like, you would probably love the Afterparty. It's very much in that spirit. At the center of the mystery in season 2 is a lesbian romance between the bride of the murder victim and the victim's sister that is revealed in like a Wes Anderson style episode. So it's kind of was pretty iconic. Like watching, I think it's episode 3. It was really.
Would you say that it's actually Wes Anderson style, or is it TikTok Wes Anderson?
I would say that unlike in the TikTok style, where they just kind of mimic the aesthetic without the more like emotional part, I would say that like in the way that Afterparty is about something quite dark, it kind of uses this style to be like, isn't this romantic? I think it's like kind of halfway between. It's not, I wouldn't say it's fully Wes Anderson style, like properly, because at the end of the day, Afterparty is still a spoof. Like it's not, it's not ever going to do it properly, but like it does it a bit better than the TikTok Wes Anderson people do it. Next up is XOXO Kitty or XO Kitty.
Did you like this show?
I didn't like it. I just had it on in the background while I was doing things at the start of the year. I don't feel like unpacking it. I can just say XOX Kitty is a spin-off of All the Boys I Loved Before. It's about the little sister going to boarding school, and she's bisexual, and it's like just a coming-of-age story. It's very nice. It's very cute. It's for the teenagers. It's very lovely. Next up, Double Parked. This was one of my favorite shows of the year. It's a Kiwi lesbian comedy starring Bicon Madeline Sami, who many people only recently discovered because of Our Flag Means Death Season 2, where she plays a lesbian pirate. But if you like that, you should actually watch this, because it's actually a good show. The premise is that this lesbian couple both get pregnant at the same time, one through IVF, the other because they get drunk one night with their housemates and think like, oh, let's just impregnate ourselves because the IVF isn't working, and so they get their best friend and housemate to donate some sperm, if you like, while they're really, really drunk, and it ends up taking. So then they're both pregnant at the same time, and it's very funny. I know this is not many people, but for anyone who watched the movie You, Me and Him and was extremely emotionally scarred by that film, this is like a fix-it of that, and it's actually funny, and it's not lesbophobic or biphobic, which we love. Oh my gosh. So next up we have The Buccaneers. I wouldn't say it's like amazing, the best show you've ever seen, but it does star Palestinian Lebanese trans icon Josie Tota as a lesbian in the 1800s.
She's not the main character, unfortunately.
She's not the main character, unfortunately, but she does have like a pretty strong subplot throughout the show that is realistic, but also very just nice. My favorite part about the finale was all the straight people were suffering, but she was having a lovely time with her girlfriend. In one episode, she does get a beard with a gay guy, and it's so funny. They perform this whole fake proposal for everyone at a party so that, you know, it's all very convincing, and it's really nice. Yeah, unfortunately, she's not the main character, but she is part of the main ensemble, and I was pleasantly surprised. Gen V, I did not finish this. I watched like the first 4 episodes and then thought, I actually think I need to watch The Boys in order to watch this, because there are just things that I don't understand that are happening. But the main character of this spin-off is bisexual. She falls in love with a character who is bigender, in the sense that they can change their presentation from female to male, and they have I think something I found cool about this,
Gender
even in the limited
fluid.
Gender fluid, something that I found really cool about this is that their different presentations have different powers, because this is a boy spin-off, so everyone has powers. And so their, like, boy powers is super strength and super speed and all this stuff, and their girl powers is, like, invisibility and it's, like, 2 different sets of abilities. And yeah, they fall in love with the main character who's bi, and they are Gaysian.
Would you say Gen V is for a younger audience than The Boys, or?
I think I would not say that. It's quite graphic in terms of like sexual stuff and violence, and it's got quite adult themes, I guess. Like the opening scene is the main character accidentally murdering her parents, and it's pretty gory. So
all right,
I would say that you should probably be over 18 if you're going to watch this. I wouldn't call it a show for teenagers. It's very much for people who are young adults. And there's lots of other gay characters, like, dotted throughout the show, because it's set on a university campus, like the university where all the people with superpowers go. And I did find this funny. They only have, like, 2 majors that they can major in, and one is one is, like, being a superhero, and the other one is
being
like,
a sidekick.
No, it's being an actor.
What?
Because the 2 most important things for a person with superpower is, you know, honing their abilities, but also marketing. And so, like, if they find that you're more stronger, like, with marketing yourself, they'll just be like, yeah, you go to the performing arts strain. And there's this joke at the
theater kid.
Assigned theater kid. And then there's this whole joke at the start where they're like, some of our alumni from that major have gone on to star in Riverdale. And it's really funny. But yeah, that's why I was like, by the time I got to sort of episode 4, I was like, I think I need to watch The Boys to understand a lot of these jokes, because I can, yeah. But anyway, Gen V was really, from what I saw of it, even as someone who's never watched a single episode of The Boys, I had a great time, so yeah. Next up, we have Scott Pilgrim Takes Off,
which is an animated series based on the Scott Pilgrim comics by Brian Lee O'Malley, but this time with a twist. The twist is that there is no Scott, which is, I don't know, this is kind of, it's really interesting as someone that liked the comics back in the day and also really loved the movie, in that this is an interesting fix-it to everything problematic about the story, but in a way it doesn't feel like revisionist, because it still feels very true to the story, but it's from Ramona's perspective, you know? Do you remember in BoJack Horseman where they're trying to make, you know, the movie about the Hollywood sign D being stolen for Diane? And and Todd's like, maybe we should make this movie more Diane-y? Yeah, this is it. Maybe we should make this story about Ramona, and yeah, it works brilliantly. It's really, really fun, and something that I loved the most about it is the way that the queerness of these characters is taken much more seriously than it was in the movie, which was honestly quite cruel. The lesbianism and bisexuality in particular, and also, like, in terms of Wallace, I mean, Wallace was an icon. Kieran was an icon as Wallace, but like,
he was an icon
and you know, it's one thing that's really fun about this show is that they get all the original cast to voice their characters again.
It's like the best of both worlds, honestly.
Yeah, best of both
like,
worlds.
The comics and the movie.
Yeah, but
nice.
like Wallace is really the winner of this show.
Yes!
I think, which is great.
I was so happy to see my best friend, gay roommate Wallace, you know, just get the best of the world in this show.
My only criticism of it is I feel like you shouldn't be this proud of being a weeaboo. And also I think the animation style was kind of too static a lot of the time and didn't really give me a lot to pay attention, because I mean, I'm very used to the fast pace of the movie, and like the editing of that movie is very influential to me and the kind of stuff that I try to do and want to do. And so I don't know, it was a bit low energy visually, but just all the jokes, like the script and all the jokes and like all the little visual gags in the background, they were really fun though. And I really appreciate it. I highly recommend it. Yeah. Oh man, I was I still remember just being shook.
I know.
At the end of the first episode, like, what is this?
It's such a fake out. You're like, oh yeah, here
that
we
was
go.
So yeah, he takes off, he fucks off to wherever until we can. Oh
so
yeah,
good.
I love
good.
Ramona. I love Ramona.
It was so nice to be able to love Ramona, to see what she is like.
Yeah.
as a person.
Like to see her like with autonomy. We get to see her and she becomes a stunt woman, and we get to see her talking with Roxy. I wish there had been more with Ramona and Envy though.
Yeah.
In the comics, the fight between Ramona and Envy is like one of my favorite scenes ever, because it's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm fighting all of your exes, you may as well fight all of mine. So good. Oh, also knives, little knives, baby gay. I knew it.
You're like, no one would have a actual crush on Scott Pilgrim. This has to be compet.
I don't The thing that always annoyed me about the Scott Pilgrim movie is that everyone looks like they do in the comics, except for Michael. Like, I do think Michael Cera is miscast in this role.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I don't see him that way. I don't see Scott being that way. But anyways, yeah, good show. Good fucking show. Next up, Wilderness.
Amazon Prime's Wilderness TV series. Sometimes a show is only watchable because, a person, me, is bisexual, and Jenna Louise Coleman is co-leading the show with Oliver Jackson Cohen. The show absolutely sucks. I do not recommend watching it. It's terrible. It's Gone Girl, but worse in so many ways. But this has been a 12-month period where Jenna is in shows where she kisses women. But at what cost? They're terrible instances in context because of white feminism a lot of the time.
If anything, it's at least the show is an addition to this very weird niche cinematic universe of Oliver Jackson Cohen having bisexual wives / girlfriends.
And being sort of shit to them, I guess.
And being sort of shit to them, but also getting shit for it. So there's Dracula 2013. There was Surface from last year with Gugu Mbatha Raw. And now we have Wilderness. What will he do next?
What will he do next? Living for the Dead is a ghost hunting show for the gays by the gays. It's produced by the creators of Queer Eye. It's hosted by Kristen Stewart. It's about a bunch of gays and 2 trans people doing ghost hunting. You know those ghost hunting shows where, dudes go to creepy places and pull out recorders and start recording things? This is that, but with a bunch of gay people doing it. These shows, really aren't my thing. I only watched the first 2 episodes. All the participants, in the show have really fun chemistry, and they all have, a skill, One is, a tech whiz, another is a witch, another is a researcher, and then there's another one who's a spiritualist, another one's a medium. They all have their little skill that they bring to the table, so it's not just that they're gay and ghost hunting. They actually have a specific interest in the undead. I've watched a lot of these kinds of shows with my sister because my sister loves ghost hunting shows, and I think what sets this apart from all the other ghost hunting shows that I've watched is how often they leave when an entity asks them to leave. And I think that's really good. Because a lot of the time when I'd watch the ones with my sister where it's a bunch of white dudes, they'll hear a voice or something crazy will happen that's a huge indicator for them to get the hell out of there, and they'll just be like, yeah, we have to stay and investigate this. But in Living for the Dead, something like that will happen, and they're like, yeah, I think we should, let's go.
Mad respect.
And mad respect for that.
Can I ask, is this a fictional mockumentary type of thing, or is it?
Oh, it's reality TV,
cool.
like those ghost hunting shows. So it is real, or as real as reality TV is.
Okay.
Fellow travellers, look, I am sorry to say that this was a bit of a slog for me personally. That's not to say that it was a bad show. So Fellow Travellers is about, for those who don't know, it's kind of non-linear multi-timeline show that follows these 2 men who are in love with each other. They first meet during the McCarthy era. One of them works for McCarthy in his office, that's Jonathan Bailey, and Matt Bomer is just another government guy. I can't remember what department in the government he works for, but they're both closeted gay men who are having an affair. In that timeline, it deals with how they survived the Lavender Scare, and it's very complicated because a lot of gay men had to throw members of their own community under the bus, and it's all very sad and complicated. The show is set over a long period of time, though, so it also covers, the 1970s and Vietnam, and it sort of shows you, how their relationship develops, but also how the stigma of being gay evolved and changed, and it finishes up in the late 80s, early 90s with the AIDS crisis. At the center of it is Jonathan Bailey and Matt Bomer playing these 2 men who are very much in love with each other. As I said, I personally found this a bit of a slog at times. I don't think they had the right kind of chemistry, or maybe it's just because Matt Bomer's sexy name for Jonathan Bailey is Skippy, and I just don't think that that's a sexy name. And it really, like, every time he said it, which is very, very often, it just took me out of the whole thing.
If you're not Australian, please look up Skippy the bush kangaroo.
Yeah, please. Yeah, it's just... I struggled. I really enjoyed, actually, the side characters, especially Jelani Aladdin's plotline. He's a gay black journalist who is reporting during the McCarthy era and the Vietnam War and throughout the AIDS crisis as well. And I find his plotline is much more, like, there's a little bit more meat to it because there's more intersectionality and it has lots of different things happening there to do with gender as well. He falls in love with a lounge singer who's played by Noah Ricketts, and they are just so lovely. Their chemistry is just amazing. I don't know why they weren't the main couple. Well, I know why. But they are just so lovely. And I also did appreciate the brief subplot that shows how lesbians were also affected by the Lavender Scare. Erin Nufa plays Jonathan Bailey's character's Beard, and I kind of love that whole section of the show, where she's also, like, helping him learn about, you know, the sort of underground gay culture that does exist in Washington. I really liked all those performances. The costuming was great. The music was done really well. Like, each period had a very distinct score that really felt like the time, which was...
that's fun.
No, there was lots I did like about it, which is why I kind of stuck it out to the end. And as I said, I really did like Jelani Aladdin's plotline. I thought that was my favourite in the show, and his role gets, like, much more substantial as the show goes on. When the show zeroed in focused on Jonathan Bailey and Matt Bomer, I was kind of like, oh, okay, Lord, here we go. I'm going to hear Skippy again. But yes, congratulations to Jonathan Bailey for his performance. It was quite good. Moving on, we have...
Our Flag Means Death Season 2, which was cancelled.
And as someone who watched Season 2, I can unequivocally say that I would have cancelled it too. Existing problems about it that had already existed, you know, like the slavery erasure and apologisms and the issues of how characters of colour are written in the show. All of that aside, Season 2 just, not only did it not address any of these issues in any meaningful way, it kind of doubled down in a lot of weird ways on its, like, apologist sort of politics, but it also just became bad. Story-wise, it just stopped making sense. I think this show just became, like, scene after scene, fan service after fan service, which I know some people like. I didn't. There was just a lot happening that I felt was really just so that the fans would be like, oh, this is so cute, rather than actually things that made sense. There is a scene that felt so homophobic to me that if this show wasn't written by a gay man, I would have assumed it was homophobic, which is a scene where Rhys Darby is like a merman, like in Zoolander, and is like waking Blackbeard Taika Waititi up from his coma by swimming towards him, like in a dream as a merman, like literally like in Zoolander. I was like, this cannot be, you are, this is so unserious.
No.
It's they were injecting a lot of drama into, like, Blackbeard and Steed's relationship just for the sake of having the angst so that they would get back together. Like, it just felt like a fan fiction in that way. I was like, this conflict actually makes no sense. Blackbeard is actually angry in this season that, like, Steed is becoming a pirate, which makes no sense. Why is this a problem? I don't know. I guess props to David Jenkins. He was like, oh yeah, lesbians are a thing. And Madeline Sami is there playing a lesbian pirate, and she and Jim have, you know, a situationship on the pirate ship. A situationship, if you like. I don't even think it was written well because it really did feel like an afterthought the entire time. It actually felt like something that Madeline Sami and Vico Ortiz probably just improv'd because it was just so underwritten. But, look, I could list my complaints, but ultimately I don't need you, because the fact that this show is cancelled, despite its insane popularity, should speak to its quality. I actually don't think that David Jenkins expected to get a season 2, because he clearly was not prepared to write one. And I think that everyone who is a fan of this show could be watching stuff that's way, way better, like Black Sails.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next up we have Doctor Who!
Yay! Doctor
Which is,
Who.
I love when my favourite show is actually good. It's
Yay!
been so bad for so long.
It's been so nice. It was so nice.
Yeah. So this year was the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. And so they had some 60th anniversary specials to celebrate the show's history and, more importantly, how good season 4 was.
Which was a delight for many people. Not necessarily me all the time, but, you know, for most people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it is actually nice to see the show grow a little bit. We have Yasmin Finney, who I mentioned in our Heartstopper section, playing Rose, who is Donna Noble's trans daughter. Like, Yasmin Finney as Rose, like, you are my North Star. I adore you. I think it should be her as a companion.
For real?
No offense to Ruby Sunday. No offense to that actress and that character, because she's like a baby. I don't want to be mean. I adore Yasmin Finney, as I said. Like, seeing her in that episode and seeing how she's just so wonderful. I couldn't understand why she isn't the companion. I'm still just happy she was there, and who knows, maybe she will be in the future, you know? But, you know, we also know that she is getting some space and time travel in with Uncle Doctor.
Uncle 15. Uncle 14. Uncle 14.
Uncle 14,
no,
sorry.
for this reason, like, I do want Rose to come back kind of as, like, a recurring character, because she will, you know, she will have all the TARDIS know-how.
Yeah, she will.
Because she's been taught by her Uncle 14.
Yeah.
And that would be, and it would rip. It would be so good. Yeah, I'm very excited for the future of the show. I wish, like, I don't think Rose was in her episode long enough, really, for me to...
No.
I mean, obviously, like, I love her and would die for her, but, you know, like, I don't know what her personality is. I also don't actually know, like, what her personality is or anything like that. But it was really lovely in that, you know, Donna, not just seeing Yasmin Finney play Donna's daughter who is trans, but also, like, seeing how that was kind of a conduit to acknowledging the way that how the Doctor kind of always has been a trans character, especially over the last couple years when over
they
the
were
last
a
couple
woman.
years that we don't really want to think about anymore. So it was really nice in that way. I just wish there had been a bit more plot with Rose. Like, I wish it had been like a 90-minute special instead of just 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Because without it, like, it really did feel sort of like an educational guide for parents of trans children, which is a nice thing for it to be, but also it could have been a good story as well. But the other episodes I think were great. Wild Blue Yonder was so good. I love seeing David and Catherine together. I have thoughts about how they did things with Donna, but that's fine. It's done. There's no point. I am super excited now for the future. I'm excited for Shitty Gatwa. The Christmas special was mostly very fun. And I'm excited for Jinx Monsoon as well. I'm just like, let's fucking go. Jinx Monsoon as the maestro. I'm placing my bet now.
Yeah,
just on record. Yeah. I'm placing my bet. I can be wrong.
I think you'll be right. And if you are wrong, it's not in the way that, like, you.
And
are
if I
wrong,
am wrong, then that just means that Russell T Davies doesn't have good ideas.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's not that you're wrong. It's that Russell T Davies is wrong. I don't trust Russell T Davies. I want that on the record, which I've put on the record in other places, but, you know, just to be clear, I don't trust that man. I'm not with everybody who's like, yay, returning to the golden era of Doctor Who. Nah, I don't trust that man.
No.
I love Ncuti Gatwa, but I don't trust Russell T Davies. But I will say the Christmas special with Ncuti, I absolutely adored Ncuti's outfits. I loved the kilt and the leather jacket get up. That's like one of the coolest outfits I've ever seen the Doctor wear ever. Ncuti, I love you so much. It's unreal. And, you know, for, you know, Ruby Sunday, like, for the little that we saw of her so far, you know, she has lots of gay friends. She has, like, an interesting little life. I'm excited to, you know, get to know her as, you know, a companion. I am cautiously excited. And I hope that with the Disney money, we get some cool needle drops. We're already going to have a Beatles episode, it seems, which your dad's going to love, Dare. Like,
oh, yeah.
I hope you watch that episode with your dad. But yay, Doctor Who is growing, finally. Happy to see it. Cautiously excited for more.
It's also nice that it's at a point where I can actually think of Doctor Who as a queer show, you know?
Yeah!
now that that's done, mostly things worth mentioning that technically aren't queer / stuff that we didn't watch, but yeah, something you did watch.
So A Murder at the End of the World, my special show, written by two of my favorite writers on the planet. No one gets me like they do, Britt Marling and Zal Manglish. I love them so much. They wrote the OA and also one of my favorite films, Another Earth and The Sound of My Voice, and a whole bunch of other films. Sometimes writers, just what they do really resonates you, and you can't really pinpoint all the reasons why, but I just love them so much. They had a new show this year called A Murder at the End of the World, which was a murder mystery, sort of whodunit. Britt is bi and Zal is gay, and they infuse their work with these vibes, even if the work itself is not necessarily queer in its content, but like a lot of their shows and films like just feature a lot of casual representation. And I think like A Murder at the End of the World is no different. The main character is played by Emma Corrin and is like very queer-coded, even though most of the show is about her solving a crime, so it's not she doesn't have time for anything else, guys. And there's just lots of the other characters who are at the end of the world, possibly being murdered, are also just there's lots of casual representation. I think it's a very cool show about AI and murder and speculative fiction stuff and the existential dread of climate change, like encroaching in on us and how that makes us feel, and how capitalism, like even, capitalizes on that dread. It's very great. I really enjoyed it. Just lots of vibes off the charts. If you love the OA, I think you will love this. But yes, that was one of my fave watches of the year. Do you want to talk about Wolf?
Yeah. Quick mention to some stuff that we didn't watch, but I think deserves a mention. There's Deadlock, which is an Australian series.
Yeah, Australian and New Zealand co-production.
Yeah, it's a small town crime show.
And the two cops are lesbians.
It has some parasocial bestie, Nina Oyama, in it. I didn't actually watch it. I will, but, just thought I'd put that out there as a patriot, I guess.
And Madeline Sami is also in the show.
Oh, really? Oh, man, yes. She's so employed last year.
I know.
Riverdale season 7, Riverdale ended. Neither of us watch it, but we heard that it was we heard that it was something.
We're happy for you, and we're also sorry that happened.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm a Virgo is Boots Riley's series that I haven't had time to watch, that I hear good things about. I do think it is a little bit funny that Boots Riley is doing a series for Amazon, but that's the stage of capitalism that we're in. But like, he's not the only one that's compromising principles, for the gig. Anyways, there was also a show, Everything Now, starring Sophie Wilde, which I don't really know much about, but I just really like Sophie Wilde. She's just a brilliant Australian actress who I adore. And there is a mini-series that I watched that I do not recommend, but it's just very baffling, so I do want to give it a mention. It's called Wolf. It's called Wolf. Like,
this vexes me.
It vexes me. It's called Wolf. It stars Iwan Rheon and Sacha Dhawan, and they're like, they do a home invasion on this unsuspecting family and hold them hostage for unclear reasons. And I put this on the list before finishing watching it, and technically it doesn't qualify, but I am just baffled that this show, the plot twist of it is that they're secretly straight. And I thought I was watching some Leopold and Loeb shit, like Funny Games in Home Invasion type shit, but they pulled the rug out from under me, and I don't know, it was very much a waste of time. But also, like, I'm entertained I'm entertained that I've been bamboozled, I'm I'm shocked and bamboozled, and it's a funny feeling. It amuses me, but I don't recommend it at all. It was bad. I just had to get that out there, but I do highly recommend it if you want to see Sacha Dhawan looking better than he ever has. He is so hot in it.
All right.
Yeah, so that's it, our TV wrap up.
That is our wrap for LGBT TV in 2023. If we missed anything, or something you guys watched that you really enjoyed that we didn't mention, send me the recommendation. I love a good TV show.
On Spotify, it lets you ask questions, so I'll leave a question space for stuff for you guys to leave if you want, stuff that you guys enjoyed last year, and also stuff that you're looking forward to, because we are looking for recommendations.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, very much. Merry
All right.
Show. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Be well. Bye.